Good morning everyone. Today we'll be reviewing the Extension 1 trial and I was in charge of marking question 3. Yes, is there a question over there? Excuse me sir, why did I lose 2 whole marks for this question? I think my answer deserves more marks than what I got. Well, if you pay attention to the marking criteria, you'll see that there was 1 mark for differentiating and the other mark was for... Yeah, I can see that, but I made the same mistake in last term's exam and I wasn't marked so harshly then. Okay, so that may be because a different teacher was marking that section and they may have thought that you... But that's not fair. If one teacher says one thing and another teacher says something completely different, how am I supposed to know what to expect? We do try to be as consistent as possible, and if you look at the number of marks devoted to each question and adjust your working out to reflect that, then hopefully you ought to... Yeah, but my tutor says this method is totally fine, and my dad is a lawyer, so I'm going straight to the principal. I don't even complain about you, because obviously you have no idea how to teach maths. This whole thing is ridiculous. Can't believe I tried so hard to get into school. Well, if anyone needs me, I'll just be at my desk crying. Okay, so what was all that about? Before I explain, let me first do something which I never thought I would do on one of these videos, which is give a big shout out to Michael and Laura, who are the first people I've ever met who've known me first from my videos and then have met me in real life afterwards. I think from memory we're making the letters M and W with our fingers to stand for Mr. Wu, which feels really silly now, but I guess that's not important. It was really cool meeting you guys. I hope you do really well in your subjects, and I'm really looking forward actually to meeting lots more of you who watch these videos and have been helped by the lessons. Now, the reason why I wanted to start by talking about these guys is because it's actually something that one of them said which caught me off guard at the time, but has made me really think afterwards, and I think I've had an epiphany that I wanted to share with you all, right? So, what one of them said, Laura, actually, was that she'd been watching my teaching videos and saw a lesson that I gave and had adopted one of the methods for setting out or solving a problem that I had taught in my class. And when she had used that method or setting out in her own school, in one of her exams, she lost half a mark or something like that. And I realized that, okay, number one, there's actually quite a lot of people who are not in the school that I teach and not even in the country where I live who are watching these videos and learning the methods that I'm teaching. And it might not apply, the ways that I'm saying you should approach this question or you should write out your solution might not apply to other people. That's the first thing. And secondly, I realized that even within my own school, over a course of time and with other different people, this kind of phenomenon happens. That dialogue before is something that's happened to me, at least on many different occasions, all rolled into one. That's not that far from reality of conversations that I've had with students who've been saying, well, why did I get marked down for this or that? And people preempt that in class these days, and as I'm teaching something, they'll say, well, okay, look, what do I really need to know? Or what do I really have to write out to make sure that I get full marks? And that's a bit frustrating for me. That's a bit sad because I'm a teacher. I'm all about understanding stuff, right? I'm not about, okay, here's how you can perform best in an exam. I mean, that's kind of nice as well when you perform well in an exam. But hopefully, that's a reflection of understanding that you've gained in class and that you get this subject or this topic or whatever. So it's sad, firstly, that people are getting marked down for learning one kind of method, but someone else thinks it's invalid, so they get marked down. And secondly, that we're getting this fixation on, okay, how exactly should I set it out? I understand this type of question or this topic or this subject, but what I really need to know is okay, how am I going to set it out so that I make sure I get full marks? Now, before I do explain the epiphany that I had, I want to share a story from a parent-teacher night years ago when maybe in the first or second year that I started teaching. And it was from a parent, and he was explaining the reason why he was encouraging his daughter to really try hard in maths and to put a lot of effort into it. And his words were, the reason why maths is really good, that you should focus on maths, is because unlike, say, in humanities or in creative subjects, in maths you can know that you can get 100% on an exam. In a humanities subject where you're writing an essay, there might be like a marking rubric that they give you, but there's always sort of a range of marks. This kind of response deserves 18 to 20 marks, okay? And so, well, what's the difference between 18, 19, and 20? There's not a clearly defined line. That's the nature of humanities. And creative subjects are the same because, what you think is a really good play or a really good short story or website or design of whatever kind might not match what someone else thinks is a really, really good work or effort. So you can never be confident that, you'll get 100%. And I can imagine, as an art teacher, seeing, say, a canvas in front of me, and I can say, wow, this is amazing. But I'd be really sometimes reluctant to say, yep, that's a 100% kind of painting, right? Because when you say 100%, there's a connotation of it's perfect. It can't be improved anymore. This is it, right? And I'm not a creative type, but I know that with designs and with art, you can always work on something and change it and adjust it and make it better. Well, depending on how you define better, which is part of the problem. So I thought to myself, okay, is that right? Was that parent, that father, was he right? Increasingly these days, I find that he's not, because back in, even in primary school these days, but if you go back 20 years, this is even more the case. Mathematics, where you got marks was for the right answer, okay? There's this long, difficult problem, and if you can do all the right steps and get the right answer out at the end, then tick, that's it. You've got it correct, okay? The only way to get the right answer is to use valid methods, right? How can you calculate the height of this tree, or the angle of inclination of, or whatever, okay? But over the last few years, this has at least been since the time that I've been in school, but it seems like it's become more and more an emphasis. It's not so much about the final answer, even though obviously that's important. It's also about the process that you use to get to that answer, right? And so I think this is kind of the reason why people will see a right answer, but as teachers or markers, assessors, they'll give it different marks. What marks are awarded for these days is not just your ability to get the right answer, but to demonstrate that you understand how to get the right answer, and to demonstrate that you understand the problem and the right way to solve it, to demonstrate that you understand the nature of what you're trying to solve, and you use a valid approach. You use perhaps the most elegant approach or a succinct approach, or one that will actually give you the right answer for the right reasons, right? Now you can see there's kind of an issue there, right? Because how do you assess someone's understanding, right? How can you say, yeah, I can tell this person knows what they're talking about? Because you can get the right answer, but you can get it in wrong ways, right? And I think that's why there's so much emphasis on working these days, okay? So as a teacher, let me give you an example. If I was looking at someone's general solution for a trig problem, okay, I'm not just going to be looking at, all right, did they get the right expression right at the end for all of the values of x that will solve this equation, okay? I'm going to look at all the steps for how they went through, and I'm going to be trying to determine, right, do they understand what kind of function this is? Do they understand how to test the solutions that they end up with? Do they understand how to take two general solutions which look different and actually combine them into one form? All of that I can't tell just by looking at their final line. I have to look at their working, okay? But the way that I can tell, okay, this person understands something, may be different from what someone else expects, right? And this kind of gets at the whole argument of, all right, should we use abbreviations? How much kind of working is expected? Well, if what you're looking for is understanding and you're trying to assess how much someone gets something, okay, that is subjective, kind of like the creative subjects and the humanities that we were talking about before. So mathematics has always been like this, but now it's being assessed a different way. Now, here's the clincher, okay? Most people, when they hear this, they're like, well, that sucks. I want to be able to get to the right answer, and whichever way I got it, if it's a mess, or if it's really short, or if there's no working, I want to be able to get there, right? But actually, this way of marking, I think, I'm convinced, is way better than the previous way, okay? Because what's the alternative? Well, if all of the emphasis and all of the marks are devoted just to your final answer, did you get it right, irrespective of how much working do you take? Did you take shortcuts? Did you abbreviate stuff? That kind of thing. If all of your emphasis is there, then if you get the final answer wrong, then, well, you don't deserve anything because you didn't get the final answer, and that's where all the emphasis is, okay? Whereas, if there is kind of attention paid to, well, how did you go about it? Were you close? Did you at least partly understand it, even if you didn't understand it enough to get exactly the right answer at the end? Then, that makes a whole lot of work for the marker because we've got to read through sometimes really, really long answers, but it rewards people who aren't right at the top and don't have a complete understanding of things. Sort of still get stuff, but not enough to get it exactly right. So, to all those people out there who maybe are watching the way that I explain or watching the way anyone else explains, there's plenty of maths or technology videos out there on the internet. Be careful. Do listen to what your teachers say, but more importantly, don't get frustrated. Try not to get frustrated about the fact that things get marked in slightly subjective ways because us teachers, we're trying our best to test how well you understand stuff, not just how well you can get to the final answer. Okay, so good luck to people in the future, particularly if you're that kind of person who can't get it perfectly right. I know I struggled a lot, both in high school and at university when I was doing my subjects, and to be honest, I relied on the fact that I could get a sort of okay understanding of questions and be rewarded for that, even if I didn't have the perfect highest level understanding that could get to the right answer at the end. I could get somewhere, and that was awarded. That was merited with marks that I did deserve. Okay, so I hope you guys appreciate that. Realize that your teachers are trying their best, and that it doesn't get you too frustrated.